No human being has traveled this far from Earth in more than 50 years. Not one. And then, 4 days ago, that changed. On April 1st, 2026, a rocket climbed out of Kennedy Space Center and kept going, past the International Space Station, past every orbit humans have used since 1972, straight into the darkness between Earth and the Moon. The 4 people inside that capsule, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, are not repeating Apollo. They are doing things the Apollo astronauts never did, surviving conditions the engineers of 1969 couldn't have engineered, and experiencing a journey that, even now, pushes the edge of what human technology can guarantee. What changed in half a century? Almost everything. Start with the body. The Apollo command module gave 3 astronauts roughly 210 cubic feet of living space. Picture a walk-in closet, 3 grown men sealed inside it for up to 14 days. Orion gives 4 people 330 cubic feet, nearly 60% more volume. Still confined, still austere, still a space where every square inch has a function. But that difference matters profoundly when the nearest hospital is 250,000 miles away and you haven't been able to straighten your spine in a week. More space isn't just comfort, it's capability. Orion has a hygiene compartment with a door that actually closes. It has a toilet modeled on the system aboard the International Space Station, one that separates and processes waste with something the Apollo crews never experienced: privacy. Apollo astronauts used adhesive plastic bags, taped to their bodies, used in front of each other, then sealed and stored inside the same cabin where they slept and ate. Nearly every Apollo astronaut who has spoken candidly about it named it among the worst parts of spaceflight. The Artemis II crew will not know that. And given everything else this mission demands of them, that may matter more than it sounds. Then there's what they do with their bodies every single day. Apollo astronauts didn't exercise. No equipment, no room. And on a 2-week mission, NASA judged the physical decline acceptable. The Artemis II crew uses a flywheel, about 30 pounds, the size of a carry-on bag, every day except launch and landing. It's a cable resistance device that can simulate up to 400 pounds of load. Rows, squats, deadlifts, and weightlessness. On the way to the Moon, the ISS carries exercise machines weighing over 4 zero pounds. This device does much of the same work at less than 1% of the mass. Apollo crews returned, so weakened some could barely walk. This crew is training. The rocket that launched them is also a fundamentally different machine. Saturn V produced 5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. The Space Launch System that carried Artemis II on April 1st generates 8 million, 17% more. Like Saturn V, it's expendable. It flies once and is done. In an era when SpaceX routinely lands boosters back on ocean platforms, that feels almost anachronistic, but SLS was never built for economics. It was built to throw Orion and 4 people toward the Moon in a single launch. No orbital assembly, no refueling, no rendezvous required to leave Earth's gravity well. Apollo ran on chemistry. Fuel cells combined hydrogen and oxygen to generate electricity, with drinking water as a byproduct. Elegant, finite, always depleting. Every watt consumed came from a supply getting smaller. Orion deploys 4 solar array wings after clearing Earth. Sunlight becomes electricity, continuously, for as long as the mission runs. The margin changes. Apollo crews manage their power like a budget, counting down to 0. The Artemis II crew has something closer to headroom. Redundancies can stay active. Systems can run longer. The spacecraft can afford to think. The service module generating that power wasn't built in the United States. It was manufactured by Airbus Defence and Space in Germany, delivered by the European Space Agency. Jeremy Hansen is Canadian, flying under a 2020 treaty that formalized Canada's role in the program. Apollo was American in every bolt. Artemis was designed from the start to be something else, a shared architecture where cost and risk and engineering knowledge are distributed across nations. That makes it slower, more complex, and more political. It also means that if it stumbles, more than one country loses. Behind the panels, the computing difference is almost incomprehensible. Apollo's guidance computer had roughly 72 kilobytes of total onboard memory and could process about 40,000 instructions per second. A cheap fitness tracker outperforms it. Orion runs 4 independent flight computers in parallel, each approximately 400 times faster than the space shuttle's systems. The cockpit is entirely digital. Software interfaces, real-time trajectory adjustments, no analog gauges. Orion demonstrated full autonomous operation during Artemis I in 2022, flying an uncrewed lunar mission from launch to Pacific splashdown without a single human input. Apollo crews were, in every meaningful sense, passengers on a vehicle that required Houston to make its critical decisions. Artemis II has been running manual piloting tests, Hansen physically flying Orion through deep space, evaluating its handling at different control modes. This spacecraft is being designed for a future where a communication delay of up to 20 minutes makes ground control functionally useless. On the subject of what they can send back, Apollo used radio, the same physics as an AM broadcast tower just aimed at the moon. It worked narrowly. Audio was degraded, images took minutes to transmit, and an entire mission's data return measured in megabytes. Orion's primary link is a laser communication system, infrared light, tight beam, capable of downlinking data at rates that would have been unimaginable in 1972. The system can transmit over 36 gigabytes per hour of active link. High-resolution photographs, video, real-time telemetry. When Christina Koch photographed Earth from deep space, and that image appeared on screens around the world within hours. That was laser communication doing something radio never could. The views from those windows are unlike anything Apollo produced. Every moon-bound Apollo mission flew roughly 70 miles above the lunar surface, close enough to read individual crater rims. Artemis II's flyby takes a different path. At closest approach, Orion will be approximately 4 Zorzone miles from the surface, far enough that the entire moon fills the window at once, pole to pole, in a single frame. No Apollo astronaut ever had that perspective at close approach. And because of this mission's specific trajectory, the crew will directly observe the Oriental Basin, an ancient impact structure on the transition between the moon's near and far sides, roughly 600 miles across. Probes have photographed it. No human eye has ever seen it in person. Apollo's geometry kept it in shadow or out of view on every flight. Artemis II's trajectory changes that. The crew will also witness something no prior mission ever experienced: a solar eclipse. Not the moon blocking the sun as seen from Earth, but the Earth blocking the sun as seen from behind the moon, lasting nearly an hour. It wasn't designed into the mission. The physics of this particular flyby made it inevitable. Science teams are treating it as a gift. Before any of that, they will break a record. Apollo 13's crew currently holds the farthest distance mark, 655 miles, reached not by intention but by catastrophe, after an oxygen tank explosion forced a free return trajectory as the only survivable path home. Artemis II is expected to reach approximately 757 miles, using that same free return trajectory. Except this time, it was the plan from launch. What Apollo 13 survived as an emergency is Artemis II's primary flight profile. What was once a last resort is now the architecture. Then comes re-entry at roughly 25 Zorzone miles per hour, faster than any crewed capsule has ever hit Earth's atmosphere. The heat shield will face temperatures near 5 Zorzone degrees Fahrenheit. Plasma blackout cuts all communication. The crew will be completely unreachable for those minutes, unable to do anything except trust that the engineering holds. After Artemis I returned in 2022, engineers found unexpected erosion in the shield's ablative material, charring and flaking the models hadn't predicted. The structure held. But the questions were serious enough that NASA spent years reviewing whether to fly a crew on it. Administrator Jared Isaacman reviewed the analysis and approved the mission. The shield on Artemis II is essentially the same design. The crew was told this. They flew anyway. This crew is also unprecedented in ways that go beyond hardware. Victor Glover is the first person of color to travel beyond low Earth orbit. Christina Koch is the first woman. Jeremy Hansen is the first non-American citizen. Apollo's roster wasn't the product of explicit exclusion so much as the pipeline it drew from. Military test pilots in the 1960s, built on structural narrowness at every level. Artemis II doesn't rewrite that history, but the 4 people closest to the moon right now look more like the full range of humanity than any crew before them. And inside that capsule, a medical study is running that Apollo never attempted. Radiation dosimeters, sleep monitors, cardiovascular sensors, all logging what 10 days outside Earth's magnetic field does to human biology. The Van Allen belts trap high-energy particles in concentrated bands above low Earth orbit. Every crewed mission since Apollo 17 has stayed safely below them. The ISS orbits below them. Artemis Tech passed through both belts on ascent and will again on the way home. Apollo astronauts reported visual flashes with their eyes closed, cosmic rays crossing their retinas. We understand the mechanism now. We also understand the damage accumulates. The data this crew generates will shape crew selection limits and spacecraft design for every deep space mission that follows. Right now, 4 people are eating rehydrated meals from a warmer the size of a briefcase, sleeping in bags clipped to the walls. They are the most distant living humans on the planet, the most distant humans who have ever existed, and they're doing it in what is, honestly, still a capsule. A better capsule, a smarter capsule, a more capable capsule in every measurable way. But still a metal shell with a heat shield on the bottom and a parachute on top, keeping 4 people alive in an environment that has no interest in their survival. 50 years of engineering made every system lighter and more reliable. None of it made the problem easy. When the Apollo astronauts came home, they came home as conquerors. The moon was the target, and they hit it. When Artemis II splashes down in the Pacific around April 11th, divers will pull out 4 people who came home as something different, pathfinders. The moon is no longer the destination, it is the first checkpoint. Everything this crew tested, the heat shield, the laser link, the flywheel, the power system, the computers, the toilet, is being validated not just for lunar landings, but for the journey beyond. The systems this crew is validating right now are the direct ancestors of the hardware that will eventually reach Mars. Apollo proved humanity could leave. Artemis is learning how long humanity can stay gone. Sometime tomorrow, Orion will pass behind the moon. All signals stop. No radio contact, no laser link, no voice from Houston. Just 4 people in a capsule, 250 hour-Zora miles from Earth, with nothing but the 3 others floating beside them in 40 minutes of absolute silence. The Apollo crews knew that silence. It hasn't changed. The moon still blocks every frequency. The void beyond it is still the void. And for those 40 minutes, no amount of computational power or solar energy or international cooperation touches a single thing. It will be 4 human beings, alone in the dark, farther from every other living thing than any human has ever been, pressed up against the one part of this experience that 50 years of progress could not reach. That silence is the same. Everything else is new. If this hit different, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.